had a conversation with a sister yesterday, and we were trying to drill down on her boundaries. She talked about her boundaries and how, she feels like, when you take on leadership and you donate your time and give an energy, which I've constantly done throughout my life, because people make things happen and people don't make things happen. And these relationships are progressively supposed to move into something. The relationship is supposed to become more intimate, more authentic. People are supposed to begin to see into each other and want to be to pour into each other and support each other with need, right? And it's only black people who try to walk with the chip on their shoulder and the barrier, which is actually a protective mechanism. And I was trying to explain to her that while she says it's about her boundaries, I'm saying to her that it's about a psychosis, because society has now been implanted where even people who didn't necessarily have a mental health circumstance, now everyone has one. And there's many people who were not diagnosed, and now they're now diagnosed. And if not for nothing, it's PTSD, because vicariously we've experienced what has happened in our landscape. And there's a part of us on the surface as human beings that make us connected to other human beings. So when they are going through suffering, we feel some of that. And if you don't feel any of that, then you might want to check in with your humanity. I'm just saying, sidebar. But my concern is that as a psychosis, we do that for our own personal protection. We step back, we barrier, we put up this cloak of give me 5 feet towards people in an effort to maintain our own capacity. But in basic relationships, there is a bottom line expectation of reciprocity. And when I come in relationship with people, and I offer 70, 80, 90% most of the time. It's literally a small bit of, because I'm just a very independent and functional person. So I have a lot of supports. I don't really need much, and reflexively as a society now, we only respond to certain things that make us comfortable. And that's now been socialized. Instead of giving us the skills to deal with uncomfortable, to deal with difficult communication, the skills to deal with that tinge of embarrassment when you've done something wrong, right? In society today, since I represent all the doing for some people, I represent having made it harmony, having succeeded in multi-level, I have 6 brains functioning at the same time, like forget about it. And that's not on purpose, and that's not because because that's a badge of honor. It could be exhausting for most people. So I would not suggest that, but I do suggest that people implement a form of flow so that they can meet the needs of the various spaces that they've given intentional obligation to. So for her, I'm explaining to her, yeah, you have your boundaries, but you've given your intention to be involved in this way. So when people come to you in the capacity that you stood there and said you'd be in that capacity, they're not overstepping their bounds. So now there needs to be a way that you dial up exactly how you want to participate with people in their asks. Because what I've experienced is when you give them an inch, they take a football field every time, and they won't stop until I have to stop them. And in that process, this iterative process of development and becoming a fully functional reanimated African, checking it out, looking at it, examining it, redesigning it, reworking it, putting in some new alternative, trying it again, this behavior, because there's no manual for it. And it looks to most people like surface level, like we're doing the same thing. We're not. I'm evolving as a fully functional reanimated African, as a whole individual. I didn't put on a costume, right? So I'm explaining to her, if she wants to be true to herself, and her consciousness was, well, this is what I want to be in my life. I want to be in service, and I want to be happy to be in service. I said, well, then there's some things that you're going to need to do about that. Because for me, I serve from a silver platter, and people somehow believe they're deserving of it, and they just become like ignorant, arrogant. It's bizarre to me. I behave and I interact with other humans with a silver platter because my personal value system says respect is due a dog. Honor is something you earn. No one has to achieve being treated with the basics of humanity. And that's what I decided and discovered early in my early 20s, that's what's missing from society. The lack of humanity. Everyone is a number, a digit, a function, a means to an end. And we haven't humanized each other. So when I deal with people in that capacity, they're now called forward to respond in that capacity. And because they cannot or won't or don't have the faculties to respond in that mechanism, they back up. They push back. They just outright ghost. I have 30 emails that I'm waiting for responses from people for years. I see them in the street. Hey, hello, we had something going on here. We had a continuity of relationship that was supposed to, but they just push back because it is a type of protection that they believe that they're putting up to support themselves. But what it really means is it means that there's a lack of skills. It's a lack of skills for that communication. It's a lack of skills for dealing with that tinge of embarrassment when you're wrong. And it's a lack of ability to deal with accountability, right? we want to really get into that accountability piece, because when people are depending on you, people make things happen. Life lives in people, and people make things happen. People don't make things happen. Okay, so I'm not a needy person. I do 90% of the work, but life lives in people. So when we talk about gatekeepers, and when we talk about people who are being maliciously withholding, right? Because life lives in people. So functions, if anything is happening or not happening, is happening because someone is actually doing a thing. Period. There is someone who is responsible and accountable. So when you put yourself on the line and you say that you're standing in this position and you need to fortify yourself so that you can function with integrity in that capacity. If you cannot, don't lie to yourself and tell yourself that you can. Because what's happening with her, what I was challenging her to consider, is that maybe you overextended yourself because you wanted to have visions of grandiosity, which most people do when they stand next to me. They suddenly want to become something that they weren't, or they want to start to, which is great that you're growing and that energy comes with me when I come into the space, but then it turns perverted because it becomes competitive and you're not there yet. You're nowhere near there. And because I said that what I'm doing is not the same as what you're doing. I'm growing and becoming a whole, fully functional, reanimated African. You're not. You are trying to get a better seat in the master's house. You want to be exalted by people. You want people to give you clap it ups and bells and ribbons. That's not why I'm doing this. It is an intention for me, and my goal moving forward is to help other people become whole, fully functional, reanimated Africans so that they become the greatest asset to the whole, so that I don't have to deal with their runoff and their misbehaviors. See, that's the point. It always comes back to, well, what's in it for me? If I can help us in this society with this work, then we'll be better. Then I'd have better relationships with people. I'd have more quality interactions with people. I'd have trust in other people. But what I have is a laundry list of disappointment, a lack of integrity, misbehavior, malicious withholding. This is what I have when I look out into the world after having given authenticity. And when I stand in that space and I say yes, I'm the wholeness of that. I present all of that. You get it all. I don't withhold anything. But then I watched a video of a girl sister. I told her about this video a little while ago, and the sister said, when you give someone a value that they don't value, that's not giving them more of it is not going to make them value it more. But this is the internal psychosis that we now have. And they have to pretend that they don't see this value because they're not willing to exchange that value. Seeing this value means they are accountable. And having to be accountable in society, because society told our people that we don't have to be responsible for our behaviors, that we can just shirk it off, that if it doesn't feel comfortable, we don't have to address it. We can just run and put on Lionel blanket and just get into our sweet, comfortable space. That's a psychosis. And it's going to prohibit people from evolving because psychologically we're always going to default to the place that makes us comfortable. So people are going to find it to be a means or an end for reneging on people, for dropping the ball, for having a lack of integrity, for not skilling themselves up. Who do you need to become so that you are in a space being in integrity? If you're not being who you need to be so that you can always be in integrity, and I'm here to tell you it's possible because I live it. And that's why they have to pull back and back up for me, because I can see your lack of integrity because I've done it from zero, from A to Z, the 100%. I've given it. And it's not difficult. And for me, it's not work, but I wasn't always like that. I had to build into that because that was my focus and my intention to be that person. Because I thought when I was younger that that's what you were supposed to be a good person. Not just smiling and waving at people, because that's what people have now equated being a nice person to, as opposed to being in integrity and being in reciprocity. And namaste and sawubona. I see into you, African. Many blessings.